Get the latest Impact podcast right into your inbox each week. Subscribe by entering your email address at impactpodcast.com to make sure you never miss an interview. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. This episode of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Closed Loop Partners. Closed Loop Partners is a leading circular economy investor in the United States with an extensive network of Fortune 500 corporate investors, family offices, institutional investors, industry experts, and impact partners. Closed Loop's platform spans the arc of capital from venture capital to private equity, bridging gaps and fostering synergies to scale the circular economy. To find Closed Loop Partners, please go to www.closedlooppartners.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. I'm John Shigarian. I'm so honored to have with us today Stephan Schablinski. He's the Vice President of Go Green North America for DHL Supply Chain. Welcome, Stephan, to the Impact Podcast.
Hey, John. Thanks for inviting me.
Happy to have you here. Thanks for taking the time. You know, Stephan, before we get talking about all things green that you're doing at DHL that makes a big impact on this planet, can you share a little bit about your backstory, where you grew up and how you got on this very important and fascinating journey that you're on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, John. So this is my 25th year with DHL. Can't believe that it's now 25 years. I started originally in Germany, where the company is headquartered. I was born in Germany, raised in Germany, and this is my 25th year with the company, of which I spent the past 18 years in their decarbonization, or how we call it, Go Green arena, trying to help the company and our customers to reduce their carbon emissions, mainly from warehousing and transport operations around the globe.
Wow. When did you move to America?
I'm relatively new to North America. I moved in the end of 2021, coming from Germany, but I spent the past 18 years in various geographies and DHL operations around the globe. I spent most of my time in Europe. I spent 5 years in Asia Pacific and Singapore, and now it's my third year in North America, which has been a very interesting journey from just looking at sustainability and decarbonization through, different perspectives, cultural, geographical, and business perspectives, and that was very, very interesting from my learning experience as well.
You bring up a great point that not a lot of people touch on, but given that you have vast experience in living on different continents, talk a little bit about that. That everyone believes wherever they sit, from their perspective, is where the world's at. But really, that's not true. Disavow my listeners and viewers from that fact, that Europe is down one road and generationally probably ahead on the sustainability journey. Parts of Asia, such as South Korea, Japan, Singapore, are also doing very well. North America, we were probably slower to adopt. Share your view on that and your experiences on those different continents, please.
All right. Well, it's very different really to compare because I worked and lived in these different continents at different points over the past 18 years. But I can say that from a DHL perspective, we have tried over the past decades to create a strong uniform cultures across the globe, so to speak, and that's what I've experienced as well. As I was moving across regions, I feel the same can-do and passion and that kind of culture, no matter where I've worked in the past decades. And as it relates to decarbonization and Go Green, I would say that it's the passion of the people to try to leverage what's available in the specific geography to basically deploy technology that is feasible, that is available, and that makes sense in the specific context. And that's that's how we evolved this program. And I remember when we started this Go Green program, as we call it, in 2007, 2008, we were one of the first companies to set a target, to understand the concept of carbon emissions, what causes carbon emissions in our operations, and how to calculate and deal with the challenge of decarbonization. And I also very well remember the first electric vehicles that we deployed back in 2010, which was back then almost impossible from perspective of availability, power supply, how to charge these vehicles. And now we have about 42,000 of these light-duty electric vehicles in operations globally, which makes us the biggest commercial electric fleet on this planet. And that in itself was just an amazing experience to really learn about this technology and find out how to make this not only operationally, but also commercially viable for us.
So DHL was very, very early, 2007, 2008. Not a lot of people, nor corporate organizations that are your size and impact, were talking about decarbonizing. That wasn't, sustainability was just becoming a thing then. Decarbonization wasn't being talked about all that much from a corporate perspective.
Right.
Share a little bit about your Strategy 2030 plan and your new bottom line called Green Logistics of Choice. What does that mean now? And what should our listeners and viewers understand that's really important to that Strategy 2030 plan and the Green Logistics of Choice?
Right. So we thought that with now almost 2 decades of experience in the green logistics space under our belt, it was the right time to give this topic a stronger focus by making it a core part of our strategy 2030, and really make sure that everyone understands our capabilities to help our customers to reduce their carbon emissions and meet their carbon emission targets, because many of our customers do have targets, as we have targets, to reduce the emissions that come from our logistics operations. I want to make sure that this is known to everybody, that there's a better connect between us and our customers as it relates to us helping them reduce their carbon emissions as well. And we do have the expertise, we have the experience in our company to be on the leading edge of this kind of development, to deploy the technology that makes most sense in the business challenge that we are working on together with our customers, whether this is in the warehousing space, whether this is short haul regional transport or long haul transport. So we have so far found solutions for almost all kind of business and logistics operations. And it took us a while to get to this point, to really understand, where do electric vehicles make sense? Where does an alternative to electric vehicles make sense to help reduce emissions? So we have developed this nice suite of different technologies that we can offer to our customers as well. So and by adding this to our core strategy, it's just, make sure that everyone understands it's a priority for us, and it gives everyone kind of the almost like the North Star, that this is the goal that we want to achieve ultimately.
Has it become a great differentiator between you and your logical competitors that you have become the greenest logistics and warehousing company in the world?
Yeah, it's becoming something that is more frequently asked by our customers in new business pursuits, or with the existing business, that customers are now asking the question, hey, DHL, what can you do to help me? So that's something that has become much more asked for. And as we have the solution to that challenge, to that question, we believe that it certainly makes a difference, as we have developed this capability to answer the question with a yes, instead of, okay, we don't know yet, we need to figure out. So that gives us certainly this additional competitive advantage compared to others in that market. So
for me, as a big user, I'm in the recycling industry, and I'm of course use freight as logistics as a big part of my business, and I have to produce every year an impact report, as do my competitors, as do most industries now have to produce reports that are transparent to what they're doing, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So your kind of activity and your kind of go green logistics of choice really would help me with my scope 3 tremendously, because you're able to report back to me how, by using your service, what kind of carbon emissions I'm doing and how that's been reduced because of all the good work that you've done, basically greening your whole process from beginning to end in your whole ecosystem. Is that how it works?
You got it, 100%. You nailed it. That's exactly the discussions that we have with our customers. We can and we want to improve their Scope 3 emissions. It's not only that we're working on these initiatives, but also we provide them with the respective reports, how much of their carbon we are contributing to their carbon footprint, because we are running parts of the logistics network. And come forward with ideas on what we can do together to reduce that footprint, whether this is by the use of alternative fuels, renewable diesel, compressed natural gas from renewable sources, hydrogen trucks, fuel cell trucks, or electric trucks. So there's a range of different technologies that are available, but not each of these technologies makes sense for every use case, so to speak.
Right.
And that's, I think, that's something that we had to learn and find out, because you can learn and do your research about all of these technologies, but in the end of the day, it's really learning from the experiences that we have made, and when each technology works best, what the constraints are, to come forward with a solution that makes sense and is sustainable in itself for a specific business case or operations.
Well, Scope 3 has historically been very, very opaque and difficult. So you're bringing transparency and trackability and reporting. And so you're bringing things that users like as small as me, but as big as I'm sure much larger organizations desperately needed.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what we can provide our customers with, because we are basically tracking all the fuels that we consume for a piece of business, whether this is fuels and energies that we needed to run logistics operations in a warehouse, or whether this is for the trucks that we operate on behalf of the customers to move their product from A to B. That's something that we capture, and that's something that we then convert into the respective CO2 information that we can share with our customers. So they can not only report, but also try to understand where their hotspots are in their Scope 3 emissions landscape, whether this is,
Right.
The road transport or aviation or whatever it is, depending on the type of business model that the customer's operating.
So talk about your sustainable fleet. You mentioned earlier, Stephan, they have 42,000 EVs, which make you the biggest EV fleet in the world. What else is part of your sustainable fleet?
So our fleet is definitely the biggest contributor to our overall carbon footprint. We operate about 120,000 road vehicles.
Wow.
And these are from light duty to medium duty to heavy duty trucks. So we started back in the day with what we thought the easiest to convert from gasoline or diesel to electric which was the cargo vans, so the light duty vehicles. This is where we started our electrification journey. And actually, almost like a fun story, back in the day when we were committed to deploy more EVs, we didn't find a solution from the shelf. So we had to run our own electric vehicle manufacturing company, which we called Street Scooter back in the day. And so we had to produce our own electric light duty vehicles. And I think we produced about 20,000 of those that are still in operation today. And over the years, the market caught up, and now we're able to kind of source electric light duty vehicles off the shelf. But by being this pioneer early in the day, we got a good idea on how to do this right, and we went through all of these early failures, how to implement the EV charging infrastructure, how long does it actually take to charge the vehicle, what is important from a driver perspective, because the driver is spending like all their day in this vehicle, and what's important for them that we should consider in the design of the vehicle to make their life and their work easier and better, and contributes also to having happy drivers, so to speak, which is a very important element to us as well, which is the most important asset is the drivers and the people for us. So we want to make sure that they love the vehicle and they love to operate this new asset. So So it took us then, a couple of years to go from 0 to 42,000 electric light-duty vehicles. And then we thought, okay, what works for the light-duty market should in theory also work for the heavy-duty market. So we try now to take the learnings from the light-duty to the heavy-duty. And we started this in 2015 with being the very first company that operated an electric yacht truck. It's a Class A truck. It's a heavy-duty truck. It's typically not taken on the road, but it's doing work inside the logistics yard to move trailers around the yard.
Wow.
It's very similar to an over-the-road truck, but it's typically only used inside the logistics yard. But the great case was because this yard is not moving long distances, which means the charger to charge the battery is always in reach. So it was almost like a good sandbox to try out the heavy-duty electrification journey. And now we have more than 100 of those electric heavy-duty trucks in operation in North America. And really, it was the same story as with the light-duty vehicles. It took us some time to make these learnings, make the experience, figure it out, make sure that the vehicle meets the operational needs, and we find a way to also kind of understand the financials, the commercial aspect of it. And now it's our absolute default. Whenever we need Class 8 yacht trucks, it will be electric.
Wow.
And I always say that we learned how to swim in the pool, like we learned how to electrify heavy duty in the yard. And now we try to take this experience onto the road with Class 8 heavy duty trucks that we use over the road. That's then the next step that we have taken and that we launched about 3 years ago.
So wait a second. For our listeners who are joining us, and listeners and viewers who've just joined us, we've got Stephan Schablinski. He's the Vice President of Go Green North America for DHL Supply Chain. To find Stephan and his colleagues and all the great work they're doing in green at DHL, please go to group.dhl.com. Just for our listeners and viewers to understand how big you are, last year you did over $89 billion in revenue. You have over 600,000 employees, and you're serving over 220 countries. So when you try something, where do you try it first, Stephan? Is it in North America? Is it in Europe first? Is it in Asia? And then how do you then socialize it around the continent, since you're basically serving the whole planet?
Yeah, that's a very interesting and valid question, because there is not this one lab that sits in one spot on the planet where we incubate all these great ideas. But sometimes the technology is more advanced in one region that you maybe don't think of in the first place. Like with these EV yacht trucks, North America is the clear leader of electric yacht trucks. Don't ask me why, but we have made some great experience with one of our vendors, and we were their very first customer in 2015. And we published the story. We work with Orange EV as one of the electric yacht truck OEMs. And we have taken the very first steps with them. We were the first customer in 2015. We deployed the very first electric yacht truck in North America. And then we basically use that experience and try to now pivot this to other regions as well, and share our approach with other geographies within DHL, instead of them trying and make their kind of first mover mistakes. We try to help them, get it right the first time, so to speak.
So you're constantly sharing best practices among the leadership team on all the different continents. Wow.
Absolutely. And it's the other way around. The example that I just talked about earlier with the light-duty electric vehicles, that was really clearly born and driven by the European team. And we have taken their approach over and tried to deploy and adopt this here for North America, basically using the very same approach, the very learnings, everything they learned about how to charge, how long it takes to charge, the range that you can typically see in real operations that you get out of the electric vehicle, and so on and so forth. We didn't need to make that experience ourselves, but we took the learnings and started from, not 0.0, but from, a more advanced level, which makes it much more easier to convince stakeholders to take that step.
Without giving away any secrets or anything like that, because that's not the point of us chatting today. Take an example, use an example, a real concrete customer example of how you took them and really helped them with their Scope 3 emissions with regards to transparency and tracking, and allowed them to reduce their Scope 3 emissions and also be able to talk about it in their annual impact report.
Right. There's a host of customers. I cannot name the names of the customers.
Okay.
There's one
Right.
publication that we just recently talked about, which was a case with Diageo. We have partnering with Diageo to electrify their electric yacht trucks, or the yacht trucks are electrified, and we have deployed the very first fuel cell electric trucks just end of last year at their campus in Illinois. Um, and that was really, I mean, these cases, these stories, every time tell me that it really it really makes a huge difference when you're working with somebody who's really willing to take these steps, because you know it also involves understanding what's involved in transitioning from a technology that we have all learned how to use over decades, which is diesel, and then taking a step to something that is so new that you don't know all the in and outs of that technology. How does it really work in practice? Does it really meet your operational needs? So it's taking that risk and say, you know what, we want to be a pioneer, we want to be a first mover, let's do this. Of course, it's not that we don't have a backup plan. If the technology doesn't work, then this whole operation will collapse. Of course, we have a backup plan to say, if the technology doesn't work, then there's this backup in place. And this is exactly what I was referring to earlier. These experiences, how do you create an environment where you can test and pilot these technologies without exposing the operations to a risk? That's important to learn how to do this in a controlled environment until you find out that technology is mature enough to basically call it the standard and the default and deploy it somewhere else. I think we have learned that through the past 2 decades or so that we have tried to utilize these new technologies to decarbonize our operations.
Stephan, besides your sustainable fleet, you also have warehouses, and there's clients like me that need to store things along the way and things of that such. How does the Go Green version of warehousing also interrelate with your sustainable fleet?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's a very interesting question because using a fleet of electric vehicles uses typically the warehouse to charge the trucks. So you need to have renewable energy at your facility to really then be truly sustainable with your electric fleet. And This is where we see like the touch point between a facility or a warehouse and your sustainable fleet. So, and that's something, by the way, that was also an interesting learning for us, that the fleet manager, who did not have a lot of touch points with facility management, now needs to learn how to consider the fueling, which is the facility eventually, into account as they plan their fleet, and as they plan their fleet strategy. They need to talk to facility managers, to real estate people. They need to understand kilowatt hours instead of gallons of diesel. So there's a lot of new kind of, if you will, metrics that a fleet manager needs to learn and take into account, which is a quite interesting learning. But when it comes to training and learning, that's something that we also found very important, to make sure that it's not like this exclusive team of 5 people that knows how to decarbonize an operation, but it's important to kind of make sure that as many people as possible are on board, understand the role they can play, no matter if they are a warehouse picker, a supervisor, a driver, a fleet planner, a CFO. So everybody can play a role in decarbonizing an operations, and some may be in a more powerful position to decide on investments, but people in our warehouse play an important role as well, because what they do, they can maybe do better to reduce the amount of energy that we need to do the same job. And just to this end, we have rolled out a program, an employee engagement program, which is called Certified. It's a training program that trains our people on various elements that are important for their business. And one Certified program is specifically focusing on sustainability decarbonization. We started this about 3-4 years ago, and we have now trained more than 100,000 people in our organization in North America. And globally, and about 40,000 in North America. And what we have seen is, by educating more and more people on what they can do, it really feels a lot more exciting, because they understand which role they can play, how they can create an impact. And even though they might have thought they are not in a position to make an impact on decarbonization. They realize through the training, well, they actually can, just by making sure that, they understand where there are improvement potentials and where they can make an impact.
That's fascinating. You've gone software and hardware. Your soft assets, your people, your hard assets, your buildings, and your moving assets, your fleet. Everybody's involved with the ecosystem of sustainability and going green at DHL.
Absolutely. And that's the point, because you can have the best and greenest assets, but if the people who are operating the asset don't understand how to best operate, you still create a lot of waste. So, which is why we cannot only look at the hardware, we also have to look at the, if you call it software, or the knowledge, so to speak. And as I said, it's not a program that is exclusive to some subject matter experts, but we want to make this program accessible to as many people as we can.
That's wonderful. Well, talk a little bit about, I assume every year DHL puts out their own impact report or a Go Green report. When is that published, and does that live on your website in perpetuity?
So we are creating an ESG report every year that is published alongside with our financial report. So you will find this on our website. I would recommend everyone who's listening to take a look. It's very detailed. So it's not only a PDF version of everything that we have done and the targets that we have set and how we are trading against these targets, but there's even a stats book with all the numbers over the past 6, 7 or more years of carbon emissions, fuel consumption, number of EVs, and really to understand where we started our journey and how far we have come. Which is really insightful. If anyone is interested, please take a look at this report and the stat book to learn more.
Typically, when do you publish that? Typically, what month every year of each year do you publish that?
I think the most recent one was published in early March this year, just 4 weeks ago.
Great, wonderful. Yeah. So it's very recent. You've been doing this since 2008 at DHL. So you're like you're one of the original founders of the sustainability movement, because the sustainability movement and the shift from the linear to circular economy, these are most recent trends. Talk a little bit about the journey. Where are you on the journey now that you have such great perspective doing the 17 years, Stephan, or so 17, 18 years? Where is DHL taking a U.S. Sports terminology? If it's a 9-inning baseball game, where is DHL in their journey, in the Go Green journey? Is it the bottom of the 2nd inning? Is it the top of the 5th? Where are you now?
Well, I wish I would understand baseball better.
It's 9 innings. So 9 innings is the end. The first inning is the beginning. So somewhere between 1 and 9. So if it's 9 innings, where would you think you are in the journey at DHL?
Well, I would say it may sound weird, but I think we are still. I feel very good about where we are. We have spent a lot of time, resources, and even financial resources on learning how to get this right and what the best technology is.
Sure.
We have started with areas that were, easier to approach, but there's still a long way to go. I mean, we are probably, from an overall impact perspective, to where we want to be in 2050, which is a net zero carbon. Sure. There's still a long way to go. But I think that, everything that we've learned from the areas that were, feasible to decarbonize, this learning, that experience, the engagement of our people, making sure that it's not just this small, exclusive team of SMEs that is able to make the difference, but it's like a mass movement in our organization. It's embedded in our culture. Sure. That will give us then the muscle to really take the next big kind of step forward and approaching areas that are more difficult to decarbonize. And I think there's still a long way to go. But I feel good at where we are, and I feel very proud that we took steps that maybe at the first glance you thought it doesn't make sense. It didn't make any financial sense. It doesn't make any sense at all to start electrification of transport in 2008 or 9, where most of the people didn't think that was even feasible. But it gave us so much knowledge, experience, and confidence that It's possible if you set yourself an aggressive target and believe in it, you maybe miss the target, but at least you get this thing moving in the right direction.
That makes total sense. I thank you for, of course, your time today on the podcast. But you have the supply chain. DHL supply chain has its own podcast called "All Business No Boundaries." I love that name. What if listeners tune in? We'll give a link to your podcast for the DHL supply chain "All Business No Boundaries" in our show notes. What can our listeners and viewers expect to find on that great podcast?
Well, there's a lot of great stories from people who have done great things. I mean, there's one podcast, I remember it was probably 1 year ago, with the customer that I just referred to, Diageo, and we talked about what we have accomplished together. And it's really supporting the idea of collaboration. It's not, and that to me is almost like part of the secret sauce. It's not one party doing it all, but it's all hands on deck, so to speak, because with these new technologies that we all need to understand, it's important to create like this mutual commitment to say, okay, we're in it together. It might not be easy, and there might be difficult times where the technology is maybe not as reliable as we thought, but we go through this together. I think that's so important, that you don't drop the ball after 6 months and it's not working well, but you go through it and you find out why it's not working and you talk to the manufacturers. And I think we play such an important role to help the manufacturers come up with a product that is meeting our requirements, right? We are the ones who are using these new technologies, and the OEMs, the manufacturers of these technologies, need our feedback, our input.
Right.
What we need them to improve to make it really like this product that can compete with the diesel technology, which has been around for decades. I mean, these diesel trucks have been around for decades. There's fueling network. You don't have to think about fueling network if you deploy a diesel truck. You don't need to figure out, okay, where do I fuel the truck, because the next gas station is probably 500 feet away from your operation. You don't need to think hard about, where do I service the truck? Where's the next shop? If the truck is broken down, where do I service the truck? And all of this is not available as conveniently for EVs at the moment, because there are just not as many EVs out there to have EV charging stations, service shops, in the same way as for diesel trucks. So all of that needs to be developed, but it would not be developed if there's no demand, and if there's not companies like us to kind of create this demand and use these assets in operations.
Stephan, there's not a day that goes by that you or me or our listeners and viewers turn on their TV and watch Bloomberg or any of the other great business channels, and we don't hear about AI or robotics and autonomous vehicles. How is that going to play a future in the role of the green logistics and the Go Green team at DHL? AI, robotics, and autonomous vehicles.
I think let's start with data first. I think data is another element that I think we are getting better and better and better at, to get real-time data about, what we are currently doing as a business. And I'm saying this because I can see a future where, at least over the next maybe 2 or 3 decades, we have like a multitude of different technologies on the road. Now we have like 98% diesel, but in the future there will be a spot for diesel trucks because they are not replaceable as easily. There will be EVs, there will be natural gas trucks, and there will be hydrogen powered trucks. But then you need to have a very good system to understand for which type of business you can utilize which of these technologies, because you don't want to idle any of those. And that's something that I find very existing, that you can really sweat your assets as much as you can by utilizing the data that you receive from your fleet, to really utilize them in the best possible way, so that you don't face all the challenges, because all of these trucks and technologies come with their own constraints. Some constraints are you don't have as much of a range as with diesel. Some constraints are you don't have as many fueling stations as with diesel. And by using the data and intelligence, you basically use the different technologies in the best possible way, which is not possible at the moment. I think that's something I find very, very exciting.
Well, how about when it comes to autonomous vehicles? Is there going to be a day in the future where many of your much of your fleet is autonomous potentially?
I don't have the crystal ball, but
None of us do.
I can see that this is going to be a technology of the future.
Yeah,
Again, where and how this technology makes sense remains to be seen.
sure.
Whether this is only for the high mileage highway type of
Right.
operation, and not for the final mile delivery. But again, we have to make our experience to see where the best use case for that type of technology is. But I believe that AI will have an impact on sustainability as well, definitely.
A positive impact. A positive impact.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
What else? You know, you have a unique visibility. You've been doing this since 2008, and you know about all these great technologies coming out. What's the next chapter? What gets you out of bed? What gets you the most excited about the future of DHL and your Go Green team and your Go Green goals?
I would say that it's really the maturity. I want to see all these great technologies mature over time, and what I never forget is when we deployed our first Class 8 heavy duty electric vehicles, the best of everything was the feedback of the drivers. They came to us and say, this is unbelievable. The truck has zero vibrations, no smell. It's just so easy to operate. It makes my day so much better. And I never forget, I had a diesel truck and an EV truck next to one another, and I was thinking, I mean, it makes so much sense to use this EV because it's just clean. It's quiet. It makes so much sense. And to see this technology mature over time, to not be challenged with range. I mean, at the moment we're looking at a limited range of these electric trucks, which is one of the big issues.
Sure.
The other one is the cost of these trucks compared to the diesel truck. The other one is you need to develop your own charging infrastructure, and these are constraints. But if I had a dream and all of these constraints would disappear overnight, that would really make this EV kind of development, like it would expedite this development definitely, because the positive sides of electrification are so overwhelming. That it's very exciting. So I'm really looking forward to this time when these constraints are going to disappear and we can just double down on these EV deployments.
As part of your fleet, I forgot to ask you earlier, but I meant to ask you, how big is your aviation fleet, and how is that going in terms of evolving your aviation fleet towards more sustainable practices?
Right. That's a good question. I'm not an expert on our aviation business, but if I'm not wrong, we have a fleet of about 300 aircrafts.
Wow.
As DHL, and so the way to decarbonize the impact of this fleet is to use sustainable aviation fuel.
Right.
And we are one, if not even the biggest user of sustainable aviation fuel as a air fleet operator.
Wow.
Which also makes me very proud. Again, the availability of sustainable aviation fuel is not where it needs to be to make really this huge impact. But again, this is something that will probably evolve over time, and it needs companies to use sustainable aviation fuel to create and develop this market, help kind of create the demand so that supply will develop accordingly in the next year. So it's exciting. It's exciting and at times also nerve-wracking, because it's exciting to be a pioneer.
Yes.
It's certainly exciting to say, okay, we did the first time this, we were the first to do that. But at the same time, as a pioneer, you also see kind of the failure. You see the difficulties, you see all the other things, but it's exciting to work on those, right? If we wouldn't do this, we wouldn't see all the challenges, and we would not be able to talk to the manufacturers about what they need to improve to make this really a resilient, robust product that can really compete with the current diesel trucks.
That's great. Well, Stephan, thank you. I really want to say thank you for your time. I know we both know sustainability is a journey, so I'd love to have you back on to share your continued journey at Go Green at DHL and the supply chain. And you're already the leader, but it's going to be fun to see, like you said, the merger, of all the maturation of all the new technologies, and how you then continue to leverage that to continue to keep you the leader in greening logistics and warehouses across the planet. For our listeners and viewers, to find Stephan and his colleagues and all the impactful work they're doing in logistics and warehousing and their whole ecosystem, please go to www.group.dhl.com. Stephan, thank you for not only today spending about an hour with us, but more important, thank you for all the great work you and your colleagues do at DHL to make the world a better place.
Thank you so much, John. It was a pleasure.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent, for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com. This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com.